This documentary was filmed over a decade, which is, on its own, that is remarkable, aside from what was actually achieved. But what really motivated you to follow this story for such a long period, and how did the project evolve over time?
I didn't think it would end up being over that time trajectory. In 2010, I just finished my master's. My background is in economics and development, and I'd already started experimenting in filmmaking because I was in South America for a while, and that's where I initially picked up a camera. So after my master's in SOAS, I was really interested in social movements, and I also at the same time wanted to explore my own roots. So my family are originally from India. They're from Gujarat, actually. I ended up in Delhi, and I went to a renowned protest site called Jantar Mantar. And I was just curious about what was going on in the country, from a social movements perspective. And I heard about this fisherman struggle in Gujarat. And I was really intrigued for many reasons, because you don't really hear about stories of struggle and resistance from Gujarat. It's got a stereotype of being, a business state, and it's followed this very kind of supercharged development model, like an economic growth model. And also, you don't really hear stories of minorities from Gujarat. It's really strongly associated with Hindutva, so it's kind of the birthplace of Hindu nationalism. And the stories you hear about its minorities are often kind of vilified. So I was really intrigued that there was this minority Muslim community who were fighting against industrialization of their coast. And I went to visit them and an NGO that was supporting them. And they just live, as you see from the trailer, they live on the coast itself, just meters away from the sea, and their whole culture is intertwined with the sea. It's very, very shaped by nature as well. And they're a very interesting community. So I was just really intrigued and fascinated by them, their use of song and poetry, and their spirit, because they were extremely energized at that time by the social movement.
They were up against a powerful institution like the World Bank, they must have found that very scary, subhanAllah. But how did you approach telling this sort of David and Goliath story in a way that balances both the personal and the legal battles? How was that for you?
So I guess like the personal heart of the story are really the fishermen, right? Because this is their way of life that is being threatened, not only by the companies, the power plants that have come along their coast, but the finances of that and the international financial institutions that enable corporations to prioritize profits over people and the environment. It kind of happened in quite an organic way, because I was already following the fishermen. They had, through an NGO, collaborated. So these international collaborations are actually really interesting, how you have local communities joining forces with lawyers, environment and human rights lawyers in the US, so that they can actually target these opaque laws and institutions that are completely undemocratic. And then when they collaborate, you can get these incredible things happening, changes that no one would have thought was possible. And in this case, international financial institutions have lost their absolute immunity. They operated under the assumption that they were immune from lawsuit, and that was challenged, and the fishing community was successful in that. So I found it just quite incredible how these alliances can form and how they can have global repercussions.
Do you find, or how did you find their resilience? As a community, this is even whilst the legal fight was going on. When you went to visit them, how was the mood for them? Did they believe that they were going to get there, or how was their response to that?
Yeah, so it kind of changed over time. Like I'd say in the beginning, they were much more optimistic. But after years of struggling and also facing the tactics from the companies themselves, like divide and rule, began to, and the film explores this as well, but the movement began to splinter. So there's kind of internal feuds and people being suspicious of another. And this is basically what the companies want, right? They want to. I mean, and this operates on a global level, national level, everywhere.
All the time.
So, yeah. So while they were still, they still, to this day, they're still critical of the developments and they still want to fight. It's just that they have to contend against such massive forces. And I think it's also part of the community, and I don't know if it's something, the way in which being fishermen and living in such close proximity to the sea and heading out to sea every day, I think it gives them a certain kind of fierceness and independence. And they're a very, very unique community because they are, they are fighters and
warriors.
And they have a history of that as well. I mean, they were involved in the struggle against British Empire as well. This specific community. So I think, they're I do think that they will continue fighting.
I just get this sense of hope, even though what's done has been happening. What's they won, but just a general sense of hope and choice, and that we don't need to give in. That when we find oppression or we're being oppressed, we don't have to just say, oh, well, no, we can fight for it. And that's what I see time and time again with this story.
And together. So
yes,
I think global solidarity
absolutely.
is extremely important. And that's where I think films and stories and art in general can really help, because they help in a way to immortalize these struggles, but also bring them to a wider audience. And I think when people make these connections and and they stand in solidarity with people, that's when changes can happen. And we do have to make a lot of changes on global, national levels, local levels, the global level.
What do you hope the audiences will take away from watching your film?
I guess ultimately it's like a curiosity about wanting to, well, there are two things really. One is the building empathy and our sense of shared humanity, with the fisher folk and other communities. But on the other hand, it's wanting this curiosity about the global system that we live in and just finding out more about, the completely undemocratic nature of our economic system. So looking into that and seeing how it, because we all have a responsibility to know and to find out about the world that we live in.
100%, 100%. Thank you so much, Sheena. Wish you all the best once again, and I can't wait to see it.